There had been a 90 is a freedom stating 93% we're going to send the
situation and this junction all the time to see something that's
said, yeah. I was thinking they're planning and I was very confused, right? So I did a business crash. They never worked in retail, but the dinner I could not find the under and that kept me out wanted to create here so we had to form an account. Your create the solutions. COVID, Spain, a simple CBC found at 27 and sold later for more than $1 billion. The $4 billion idea, it was like so many of us. So sort of I'm cubicle thinking about and I woke up one day and my friends coming along there. I was go to you say really that Hamas wants we demand the end of the air because we are starving. Do that. No. It's more is the only way to bring all our hostages home. Mr. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not stopped. President Trump had ordered
already given you the backing. He had already told you that the gates of hell will open on Gaza, and we are procrastinating and missing out. We must stop missing out. We must stop procrastinating. We must launch a decisive attack, occupy all of the Gaza Strip, and encourage voluntary migration of Gazans to countries around the world.
This after Hamas decided to free the last surviving hostage in Gaza. American hostage is set to be released by Hamas following four-way talks between Hamas, the US, Egypt. The family members of the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza took voice in their Netanyahu. On Monday, hostages gathered at the square in Tel Aviv as mothers and fathers of hostages pleaded with US President Donald Trump, Special Envoy to West Asia, Steve Witkoff, to continue their efforts to bring about the release of all the remaining hostages. Parents will end the Gaza and make a ceasefire deal to free all the remaining hostages.
Sell that families of hostages need to have foreign passports in order to release their loved ones from police captivity. Israeli passports are citizenship in this country. Take these experience.
The United States has unveiled a new aid initiative for Gaza that will be led by a non-governmental foundation. This will exclude from uniform distribution responsibilities. According to US Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, Israeli forces will instead provide military security to protect aid operations in the war zone. Land comes amid growing international for sidelining has and no shutting down
So they have this pasta, rice, flour, and just not the same quality as
all of these service, all they want is to eat and live their lives.
and understand that's why international Gaza said dead.
I'm not a tennis fan, so forgive me if I get it wrong, but I believe it was Simmons, which is one player. Not only, because they're supposed to virtually, but also in the Congress, I have very
I was like, it's also there's great next week advantages. And this one.
The national conversation on an issue that hits the needs of aging America today. The erosion of cattle. General, issue is a retired former commander of the U.S. and NATO forces in Afghanistan. He also led the U.S. Special Forces at the height of the global war on terror. But Crystal had a music called Neutrality. Voices and the final line. Sandy McChrystal, welcome back. Great to see you. Great. Thanks, Sandy. You've written a book about Harris. I have to watching back the years on this that you call strong compulsive Christians in character. Explain why. Yeah. First, I'd say that include my characters and everything about me, who I am, and I think that's for everyone. And I think it's the essence of leader. And so, when I think about any leader, the CEO of a company, or the leader of schools, especially in stage, we have a most important aspect of care because we'll never be able to prove what crises emerge.
I was asleep this man when all the debris fell on me.
In the last election, I looked as closely as I could, and we have two people who are relatively known as the one of them president. And I made a decision that character was the number one materialist police. But it didn't agree with the politics, or the policies completely eradicated. Yeah, more than 30. A judge that vice president Harris the people who support President Trump. And it says we made him with skills. Look, you get it. He's not a there are a lot of children, but he is a warrior for and he breaks a lot of boundaries. Always that's okay, but for you character is deeper. And I just have to say something like that. And understand because I'm being this youth and have to and so that's really it's something is understanding gets encourage the fun when you use service or earth to my life. You sort of raise the what's inside person. When I look at that, President Trump's track record, and that there is less character than any people in saying that the president of the United States actually thinks that he knows in the way he was included in the case of my president here. When you see countries like Canada, Denmark, that have contributed to almost every American war, and to Washington essentially kind of picking fights for them. You think of the rates the trust that you need to work for the next war and then will they be in there? I've never seen planning that gets better because you put it in policy. And if I think how nice the election from criticizing me in those publishers, it was just like still on the battlefield Canadian soldiers. Read them, families of Canadian home. And it keeps it wrong and the people who can use to respect the feeling. I think it's not looking at where we just management. Now we have one. Range and gain. Tended to say besides the politics. And then we see celebrities who, in a way, that we'd never want our children from anybody. We still buy their products and here, like any place in the world. And so what we've allowed is the traditional norms, how people should behave, how we should see each other, to become much weaker than they used to be. Now, the retort is, there's always been people who do things, and slandering, whatever, and very well. If the millions have been striving to live on now, they're maybe to move. You would argue that it's pretty like work. So I think that's the big challenge in front of us. And that's why I talked about the need for national concentration in space. I think we should just put it out there. Some people will be embarrassed, but there's a difference. I didn't. Because something we can make a better future than the one on hold. And of course, always very much. Thank you for that. It gives us 10 years, chief executive, including creating the possibility in this. 10 years running Paramount City. And the past 7 years at internet giant place. In those years, he's made you. Also, if you've ever used Expedia and Match.com, those are part of it. And if you move more, you move. You're like, hey, welcome back. I didn't take your feel over here, but to me, so then you take the timer. You're how old? 32. You're 32 years old. I remember the great coming of the major studios. You started in the studio. Then you need the help. Saturday night studio. You, Raiders of the World. Sons of Jim. Ordinary people. That's it. Right there. But you have land one. What did you do? I can't see it like the first person to come into the media business and say, the people who know the business, so you have to say, you know, one of the ideas that organization health development we're students, and then you just come to finish, and then we do the same. And then we do the same. And then we do that. Then you need everyone thinks it is something. And I can repeat these I'm just projecting myself because we are taught for the first time. But I still do it 3 times. You can't start anything. And you're enormously okay. Because everything usually is going to teach. So you start to be able to power through it. But mostly, I think it's being creative. So when you look at the future, you can feel crystal ball. I think it's absolutely the only institutional units I think space users because it is the video. I think this needs now to figure out a digital footprint for the videos. And really big on like you really live right now. You're living in the precipice of enormous change. Completely unpredictable thing. And we're living it and this thing will follow in the next 5 to 10 years. When other than conductive revolution, this I think is a committed time frame for the most enormous change I think probably it's so much change. And you're talking a lot about it. The lesson you take from the past. Now you have here to walk one part of the retailer as they're going to have to raise their prices because of the trade war. What would you take this experience and say? Also, where's the so I want to put that in the Walmart price increase, banana, 50 cents. That's really do that. That's real money we don't take it. I have no. It is a permanent economic environment. Trying to use these higher tariffs as a tool, as leverage, as a trade. And it would be much better. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon and Bloomberg today that it was fascinating. Take a look. It's probably pricing obviously I know you don't do. But if we have them, here, we're because of the short America and the better financial place. I think you're right to focus on the laws. I mean, higher tariffs for higher tariffs would have to be in place, right? You got some of these countries that look pretty well on American areas. If we can get those little dollars to be quickly get, I don't think we're going to be forced into this policy pattern here. So sometimes we are wanting to be able to and get pretty good deals. I'm still trying to find out residents in all this bill. Right. I'm not sure that is broken up. Ways of people in the States, New York, they get a good job in their federal taxes. Listen to our people for growing today. That the control is one of the big ones. Which one of the big displays? They're sort of mediate with their children and realizing. We're very, very. What's how very What do you think is doing, I thought I would tell you, I don't think we should be subsidizing ice. Salt is just the way. New York. If it was up to me, it was lower. Not to me, it's just like, to figure out a line. All this ice is not delivered. A little bit. Maybe 30, 40,000. I think that's you. The speaker is right. Some full of them saying, if the New York Times thinks that by playing hard, they jail.
Into and around 40.
Dimes.
Others. This
But it did-
uses more into the United States cities is at
We're gonna get.
stating 93%.
Joe Belichick was once again impressed about his controversial, like, this morning in an interview with Good Morning America, Henry was like. He's been very. Business, Carolina. The point that the. People who don't know, down coaches, as you can see, Temple Hill.
Administrative non-
As you talk to the employee, is that how Bill Belichick? He's not personal person. I think it's a really thing that they look like had would be watching all. Then he always the other day speak for yourself in the job. He had a few months was nothing really good. And we had that speak. And it's just football team and that. I know that if you want to. This kid is I'm still facing the tax as you do the person doing like home. I said, yeah, he's just ready. One thing I kind of remind you of is that he had you off football. He is just total media blitz. So he was working with media the office. Relationship with experience, yeah, relationship with it wasn't doing all this media stuff. And I never seen it before. We kind of opened himself up. In the midst, yeah, he's opening himself up. Maybe too much. That one stuff. So I think 73, your girlfriend, Jordan, and so forth, there's something about, but there's nothing illegal about what they're doing, or necessarily illegal. It's just kind of behind it. This is Belichick describing the relationship. What does Jordan mean to you? Well, we have the personal relationship. You know, I'm not talking about personal relationships like what you can. You know, yes. He's just part of these things, like the rest of us, straight here, just taking his word and just doing anything, just let it be happy. I think no matter what happens, you see them, that is part of the story. Whether they're successful, what they're trying to do, and yes, there's something in that, you know, this time in mind, maybe not necessarily directly, but it's, you know, the idea of what you say behind it. And I remember where he's bringing and really taking it and all the different things. The way it's the play the days that really don't remember it. I don't know how else to defend them with these times Steve nothing for the thing that was the most something in the world in Southern Franklin difference in all the time social media was the Monday and everything. The people that really grew up with them, they enjoyed interrupting the interview that was on with it. Maybe that's you. No. I'm talking about that. What I said, next time, you know, to be his spokesperson, that's, that would have never happened. Any person.
President Trump
Or you had to find
everything out. Was the strip migration of Gazans to countries around.
Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to continue with plans that will intensify and has said that there will be ceasefire in Gaza. This after Hamas decided to free last surviving hostages in Gaza. Legal Alexander as a goodwill gesture to Israel. Israeli hostages in four-way talks between us, the US, Egypt, and the family members of the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Tel Aviv as hostages pleaded Donald Trump as special envoy to West Asia continue their efforts. After the release of all the hostages, there is to end Gaza and leave the society to save the remaining hostages.
Very sad. Still in place. Something's for an experience.
Foreign distance to that data since land comes after voting international treaties for cyber investigations and established start date has been given yet. Conditions in Gaza continue to deteriorate under a warning proposed by Israel aimed at pressuring Hamas. Food shortages have reached critical levels, with aid workers warning that operations are shutting down due to a lack of supplies. In Khan Yunis, desperate crowds gathered at 24 distribution points, often empty-handed.
People have been found out, so they have resorted to crime. polyester and rice instead of using flour. Of course, this cannot replace flour and does not give the same quality as flour when making bread, but this is all that is available today.
Humanity of the world that sees us every day. More than 60 days, not even a glass of water is entered. What is the fault of these children? They done to deserve this. All they want is to eat and live their failures.
Any international United Nations Agency as now 58 hostages in Gaza. 24
Israel cars get well early is a basic more on the online behind. And the other system here, new answer, Gideon, Korea, in Ukraine. Palestinian health cities say more than 100 people working overnight on Sundays amid an extensive ground and electronic. It's hardly even local authorities saying the IDF airstrike is the 10th house that is placed down.
You grind the fundamentals and wake up not knowing how to provide our daily stuff. It's always I have looked forward. I look for nothing for us. They thought of mercy on us. We said we are the we can't live in the water. My heart is in the open. I want all the body, but I probably not really well. Music will be in the United States. Not in Europe, in Paradigm. Working with the former president, like her. I think he's done basketball in Israel. Since been a territory of death, destruction, United States. Just the freedoms. I think it comes together for the things that
Continues to pound Gaza. Gaza Civil Defense Agency said at least 50 people have been killed with the idea of strikes. Palestinian territory since midnight. This anti-Palestinian response said the 100 strikes in Gaza. As the United States and the Arab leaders push for a ceasefire, the IDF said its Air Force targeted 130 targets used by military forces in Gaza in the past 2 weeks. Footage of the aftermath of the strike on their and trials with conflicts. The strike in Jabalia in northern Gaza is a complex with mosque and a small beacon the Health Ministry in the Hamas and territory said 2,876 people have been killed. Since Israel received strikes on March 2010, Israel says its aid stoppage in the execution are meant to focus the faith and weaken hostages seized during the October 2023 attack that triggered the Ramadan. The group insisted that the restoration of humanitarian assistance in the war damaged territory must be within the cooperative. It was important that Gaza was not for sale. Those after US President Trump again floated the idea of taking over the territory and turning it into a freedom zone. US State acknowledged the crisis of the plan and said that something Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and conveyed that Washington is troubled by the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Further, the Israeli military said it intercepted missile fire from Yemen, inside the attack was led by Yemen's rebels. The Iran-backed group said that they targeted Tel Aviv's international airport with the help of a hypersonic ballistic missile.
So far, supporting armed forces carried specific military operation targeting Israeli in the occupied area of Jaffa using a hypersonic ballistic missile. Successfully achieved its objective, causing millions of occupying Zionists to flee shelters and halting airport operations for nearly an hour.
For ceasefire. Israeli army took positions near that said and Gaza lasted 2 days. Started buildings and twice from 6 away. A strike in Jabalia the health ministry in the Hamas country saying 2,876 people have been killed since the strikes started. Success force Hamas to flee but the group insisted that restoration of humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians was included by its hours after this was governed, the idea of taking the territory and turning it into a the second bill acknowledged the criticism of this plan and said the possibilities of the alternative if so
I'd like to hear that participate in operations is the green of basic principles. This particular distribution plan does not comport with our basic principles, including those of impartiality, neutrality, independence. And we participating in this.
Military military Israel named Ben Gurion Airport in the occupied area of Jaffa. The hypersonic ballistic missile has successfully achieved its objective, causing occupying Zionists to flee to shelters and halting airport operations from Area 9. Thank you.
Some of the ski shores, storage shelters, and outside our hospital in Khan Yunis, families receive moving home shrouded bodies. As well as the parents. At the moment, 7 people were killed in a strike on a walk in Somalia. That's five positions of the violent strikes being Israeli military has been
They don't do very much. You see it in foot higher than the film because it's still non-tangible. Environment for the country about
collapsing.
This one is top five with the safe and it's really just one individual.
From the underground surrounding the hospital and the video footage from the scene as these figures forced fighter jets heavy bombs. Israeli security have long believed that Muhammad faced the militant groups. In fact, the leader, after the death of his elder brother, Yahya, former Hamas leader in Gaza, was killed by an IDF in southern of Gaza in October last year. Gaza Civil Defense Agency said at least 28 people were killed in Israeli strikes around the European hospital in Khan Yunis after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced the military could enter Gaza with full force. However, the military said it struck Hamas militants inside command and center, and the city that's also a confidence. Gaza Defense Ministry said that the strike killed 2 people. One of the dead was journalist Hassan Asli. Now, Israel had accused Asli of participating in Hamas's October 7, 2020 attacks. Late on Tuesday, the Israeli military urged the release civil troops of northern Gaza to evacuate after it intercepted 2 project files far from the territory. The armed wing of Hamas ally, Islamic Jihad, claimed responsibility for the rocket fire into Israel, which has been clear in recent weeks. Israel resumed major operations across Gaza on March 18th amid a deadlock over how to proceed with the January 19th ceasefire. The United Nations called on the security council to take action to prevent genocide in Gaza after Israel announced that the military was resuming full force operations in the Palestinian territory.
If you don't get out,
Sorry. whole tragedy and it just, you know, whatever your thoughts are, I hear and particularly to a certain if they live long enough, deal with prostate cancer, but it's great news that they think that it's able. Nonetheless, you know, credit the people who serve in these offices, they should become embedded in our lives. And, you know, and this is a reminder that that remains immortal. And so it's gone. And continue to serve with
I was just around when some of the, concerns about health, voters' health. Later on, when I was using, as a consultant for the campaign, voters' health to the fore, and, I just feel for it, the family, because there's more and more things to struggle with right now.
For being with us.
Well, it's a very serious situation because we're told that President Biden not only has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, very common form of cancer, and but also that its cell type is quite aggressive, meaning it's neurological has spread, and indeed it has spread, and it suspect evidence of it in one or more of his bones. So we know that he's been also in the prostate. And it changes, how his oncologist will approach the treatment of it. Instead of trying to remove the prostate, which would be one of the very common treatment modalities in people with prostate cancer, they will now focus on containing and containing it with a variety of foods. We call them sensitive hormones. As we spoke about a little earlier today, prostate cancer cells grow in the presence of testosterone. So that male hormone can be given in a variety of ways, and that is goes into the tumor, prevents further spread. There's therapeutic options. There are immune therapy options. There are systemic radiotherapy options that can be given in these patients. And it's important, it's very important patients know that they are because when you see a diagnosis of such things, that's basically all you do. And in the concept of going to die, they start things. And when you tell patients, okay, this is the diagnosis, but this is what we can do with that. And it's and can increase that new therapy due to the option going forward. And so many times with things. In the first day that we're getting cancer diagnosed, the savings the treatment plan that it's paralyzing science. Once you're told this is what we can do, we give us therapy, let's get going, it's very empowering. And I'm sure in the coming days, I think they're ready to president has control the team. And that puts you, more than 7 methods that know when you can do this. Which here we feel
Mr. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we must not stop. President Trump had already given you backing. Why don't we told you that the gates of hell will open on Gaza? We are procrastinating and missing out. We must stop missing out. We must stop procrastinating. We must launch a decisive attack, occupy all of Gaza Strip, and encourage voluntary migration of Gazans to countries around the world.
some will. And again, I think it's really important for any company to focus on their partners, not what the numbers are. And the regular availability of food safety and medical data by agencies, one of my things is that some states can accept. It starts taking some medical. I encourage them to develop a relationship with the college of people, the ethics and the treatment. And get them really and that's what I would tell President Biden. I would tell them there's a lot to do, like documents. Well, the older we are, prostate cancer is diagnosed more frequently in older men than younger men. And when we start therapy for any kind of cancer, particularly metastatic cancer, how you do depends on how you are handled. what the alternative does. And that's what, and you see those other, it's like, this, you see that, that's even, and listening. All kinds of other than that, if you, and the more, in front of you, and trying to be, the harder to be, of specific treatments. Hormonal therapy for particularly accelerated, quite well. So, I expect that if that is what they start with, then you'll see more expression vitamin D is quite well. In other forms of cancer therapy, with a toxic, often to get the control on patients' well-being, but we'll have to treat. And they'll tailor his therapy to his particular thing and his current health status, and then make adjustments along the way, and yet it's going forward. And that's why they need to get, that's what it needs to get focused.
So it's not, that's just the one thing the concept during those days, it's a really good day.
Overdose deaths in the United States by 27%, 2023 to 2024. That's according to the data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, the numbers are still huge.
Sustainability is flat. This is all that is available today.
The humanity of the world that sees us every day. More than 60 days, not even a glass of water is entered through the process. What does the fact of these children? What have they done to deserve this? All they want is to keep up their lives.
Then, the police says, I don't think that. Then help with the Democratic Congresswoman, not only a great care of the bipartisan sentinel prevention process and really personal experience with this. You're doing a second question. We plan to continue to the Secretary of our community this week about the Second Administration. That's a team by doing some plans. Authorities news a lack of news and they try to figure out what is it. Taking a member explanation, the evidence suggests there was a mechanical issue with the shifting rudder. Because they told investigators they lost power and reignited there. Nothing happened. We're just reportedly here. Very two things I work which is undersigned of where I'm going to hard. 19 of those on board work and being employed as they don't have an
Every sort of meaning it's trying to respond. A lot. Mr. Guys was buying hospital beds because also hospital on use, there is no space left. And for the dead bodies that are hospital support. That's what it is.
Throughout the day.
So, 16%, which is basically a barrel of explosives. As you can see, the house has been completely destroyed. The family has been wiped from the civil registry.
Only the husband survived. The entire area has been severely damaged. We covered many body parts.
They burned a neighbor's house. Collapsed. My house was completely destroyed. I was asleep in this bed when the debris fell.
As the American president undertakes historic investigation in threatened Trump estate, wants the United States to take Gaza to the war. Territory of depth and destruction, United States. Making just a freedoms. Secret councils be ending for the treasure to bring this the Gaza Strip for these back together, you're showing the restore they finish.
And the Israeli military continues to pound Gaza. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said at least 50 people have been killed in the IDF strikes on Palestinian territory since midnight. This after Palestinian rescue said 120 people were killed in the strikes on people in Gaza as the United States and the Arab mediators pushed for a ceasefire deal. The IDF said its air force struck 130 targets used by military groups in Gaza for the past 2 weeks. Footage from the aftermath of a strike on Deir al-Balah showed flattened buildings and piles of concrete dropping. The strike in Jabalia in northern Gaza hit a complex including mosque and a small medical clinic, killing 13 people. The health ministry in the Hamas-run territory said 2,876 people have been killed. Since Israel resumed strikes on the 18th of March, taking over a total of 53,010. Israel says its aid stoppage and military pressure are meant to force Hamas to free the remaining hostages seized during the October 2023 attack that triggered the war. But the group insisted that the restoration of humanitarian assistance at the ravaged territory was the minimum requirement for talks. It also warned that Gaza was not for sale. Hours after US President Donald Trump again floated the idea of taking over the territory and turning it into a freedom zone. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio acknowledged the criticism of the plan and said Washington was open to an alternative if someone had a better one. US Secretary of State also said that he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and conveyed that Washington is troubled by the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Furthermore, the Israeli military said it intercepted a missile fired from Yemen following air raid sirens sounded in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The attack was claimed by Yemen's Houthi rebels. The Iran-backed group said that they targeted Tel Aviv's international airport with the help of a hypersonic ballistic missile.
Forces carrying out a specific military operation targeting an Israeli named Ben Command Air Unit in the occupied area of Yaffo using a hypersonic ballistic missile. The missile has successfully achieved its objective, causing millions of occupying Zionists to flee to shelters and halting airport operations for nearly an hour.
Said example, track 30 targets by Hamas in Gaza passed the aftermath of strike flattened buildings and fires conflicts. A strike in Jabalia in northern Gaza hit a complex with mosque and a small medical clinic, killing 14 people. The health ministry in the Hamas territory said 876 million since this strikes. The idea taken from the territory
Because some of the donors would say that the reporting in the book is either made before the diagnosis under for whether it's half day with something and I'm saying it is notable that nothing in the book is that everyone is involved. They have asked for funds. And I am saying, so the after the 5 minutes for the infant kids like I before, but then you just really need it. You know, I suddenly feel good because the media making those things Donald Trump Jr., for example, on social media, suggesting that this is an out being announced in this is a diet overdue and depravity. So those arguments are going to keep going back and forth. And there are people who work as well. It's been worse. You look back at 2024 decision coming out. Cherokee Plains in Palm Springs, California. Authorities say 25-year-old Guy Blackson is reported they believe in people believe that the only record with law in California bombing was that of Charlotte Days, and then the oldest was so strange.
Causing millions of occupying scientists to flee shelters and halting airport operations for nearly an hour.
Displaced families in southern Gaza, people and moving more. Footage from the scene showed destroyed shelters and rescuers searching for survivors. Outside our hospital in Khan Yunis, families were seen with shrouded bodies.
Find out what they were doing, really about Saturday, but they said they are aware of
There is no best. The children, as well as their parents, died too, and my nieces
In the past, 7 people were killed in the strike on a home in Jabalia. 4 more deaths in Zahadia and Khan Yunis. Civil defense officials called the series of violent strikes, saying the Israeli military has not commented on the incident yet. Hamas and Gaza also announced that all public hospitals in Gaza now to service. The final facility, the Indonesian hospital, was forced to shut down after heavy fire and an Israeli siege cut off access to patient staff and supplies. Next to this patient, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office issued a statement saying Israel is still working on a possible to end the fighting. Israel also put out that a ceasefire agreement will have to include the release of all hostages, the exile of Hamas terrorists, and the disarmament of the Gaza Strip. Negotiations are ongoing in Doha as of now, but as diplomacy unfolds, the reality on the ground remains dire, with strikes continuing and humanitarian conditions collapsing by the day. Top story of the hour, Israeli Defense Forces targeted Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar in a massive airstrike on a spring southern Gaza Strip. According to Defense Forces, the Israeli military used a bunker buster bomb in their attempted attack against Sinwar. However, it was not confirmed if he was killed in the strike. The IDF said it had targeted Hamas operatives at an underground command center below the European hospital in San Yunis. The army also released a video to show that the strikes had uncovered the tunnel under the hospital. Large plumes of smoke billowed from the underground surrounding the hospital in the video footage from the scene, as Israeli Air Force fighter jets dropped numerous bombs. Israeli security have long believed that Mohammed Sinwar became the militant group's de facto leader after the death of his elder brother, Yasser, former Hamas leader in Gaza, who was killed by the IDF in southern Gaza in October last year. The Gaza Civil Defense Agency said at least 28 people were killed in Israeli strikes around the European hospital in Khan Yunis after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced the military would enter Gaza with full force in the coming days. Now, earlier, the military said it's dropped Hamas militants inside a command and control center at Nasser Hospital, that's also at Khan Yunis. The Gaza's health ministry said that the strike killed 2 people. One of the dead was journalist Hassan Asli. Now, Israel had accused Asli of participating in Hamas's October 7, 2023 attacks. Late on Tuesday, the Israeli military urged civilians in several parts of northern Gaza to evacuate after it intercepted 2 projectiles fired from the territory. The armed wing of Hamas ally, Islamic Jihad, claimed responsibility for the rocket fire into Israel, which has been greater in recent weeks. Israel resumed major operations across Gaza on March 18th amid a deadlock over how to proceed with the January 19th ceasefire. The United Nations Chief Fletcher called on the UN Security Council to take action to prevent genocide in Gaza after Israel announced its military was resuming full force operations in the Palestinian territory.
So for those killed, voices silenced. Act decisively to prevent genocide and to ensure respect for international
Especially for the families of hostages, Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. And eyewitness video captured the moment when several explosions took place in the southern Gaza. The Hamas health ministry says that 9 missiles slammed into and around the courtyard of the hospital in Saudi Arabia, killing 16 people today, 70 others. Palestinian civil defense personnel were He's from other that's really strange. It's Nasser is one of the largest healthcare facilities in Gaza.
I'll have more inside the department, so apartment is almost fully damaged. There's no department.
This is the continuous explosion of aid into Gaza. The United Nations has warned that Gaza's population dropped to 4 million Palestinians is at critical risk of famine and faces extreme food insecurity. Gaza on March 18th amid a deadlock over how to proceed with the January 19 ceasefire. The United Nations chief Fletcher called on the UN Security Council to take action to prevent genocide in Gaza after Israel announced its military was resuming full force operations in the Palestinian territory.
So for those curious, silenced. Act decisively to prevent genocide and to ensure respect for international law.
All of that, obviously. He's not a stranger to
Jury has issued
thank you. Life.
Gaza Strip.
Whatever you're saying, how you feel, this is a big decent man. To serve the country and
for the strike, but our individuals. Patients inside the departments are market for the departments almost fully damaged.
In your place on his ability, well, ahead of
This is continuous explosion of aid into Gaza. The United Nations is called Palestinians faces extreme insecurity. National emergency aid stating 93% of the population. Also, high level wishing for girls here in Gaza, experiencing catastrophic levels. But
in life, most men, if they live long enough, they think that it's admirable. Jarring is on my list. So people who serve in these offices, they should become embedded in our lives. And it was a reminder that and so it's jarring, and I had the opportunity to serve with Spike President for 2 years in the White House, Doris House. Later on, when I was working as a consultant for the campaign, Doris House to the fore, and I just feel for the family, because it's really the thing to struggle with right now. For those kids, because they're told that as they divide it, not only have some diagnosis of prostate cancer, very common thing of cancer, but also that its cell type is quite like it has a higher likelihood of spreading, and indeed it has spread in the genetic evidence of the disease in one or more biology. So we know that there's been an interesting change in the prostate, and that changes how was treatment. Instead of trying to remove the prostate, which would be one of the very common treatment modalities in people with low prostate cancer, they were now focused on containing with a very what's called as hormone. As we spoke about a little earlier today, prostate cancer cells grow in the presence of testosterone, so that male hormone can be blocked in the body to slow the tumor to then further spread. But therapeutic options, there are immune therapy options, there are systemic radiotherapy options that can be given to these patients. And all of this is important at the very end, because when you hear of cancer, that's basically all you do. And I think that you're going to die soon. And you're facing that, okay, we could be diagnosed, so this is what we can do with that. And we'll start with, let's say, hormonal therapy, you'll follow your progress, and then you can add more therapy people to go. And in the first days after getting before you have a treatment plan set, it's for these results, this is what we can do. We do the therapy, let's say so, and it's very empowering. And I'm sure in a few days, if you're ready, the second has been told the tumor, and that then puts you, more into the methods of more than anything.
Which here can feel empowering in a way.
It changes the prognosis significantly. The farthest survival rate for prostate cancer is somewhere around 33%. So, which means that the majority of people in 5 years after this diagnosis of prostate cancer become well. And again, I think it's really important to prostate cancer, to focus on their prognosis, not what the numbers say. And the ready availability of unfiltered medicine data, like the baby, why am I seeing this as a prostate cancer? Storage stations in the involved. It's something to develop with and give them realistic expectations. And that's what's needed itself starting in Friday. I would think there's a lot to do. Let's go to well, we know that we are. Well, first of all, prostate cancer is diagnosed more frequently in older men than younger men. And as you start therapy for any kind of cancer, particularly metastatic cancer, how you do depends on how you are in, what your current medical status is. And as you get older, we accumulate other comorbidities, heart disease, diabetes, all kinds of vaccines, and the more incumbent we are to our chronic disease, stronger can be the results of cancer treatment. Hormonal therapies typically is tolerated quite well. So I think that exactly what they're starting, and President Biden making quite happy. in other things of cancer therapy, case, which are more toxic, often take a control on a patient's well-being. It will have to see. And they'll tailor his therapy to this particular pain and to his current health status and his adjustments along the way. And we keep going forward. And that's what I mean. That's what I mean with the hope.
Go forward. And get a plan and do the best we can. Once they're doing that story, it's all I can do.
Like 27%, it's like tradition in 24, but according to new data, changes to these people and prevention. Now, the numbers are still too high, 80,000 is still too high, but still, down.
Instead of using
And how-
this kind of goes well. Saying white is fine, it may be red, and this is anticipated to
Opioid, the lower satisfaction within the liquid opioid supply. Reports of anxiety and history
It's not even a glass of water, sending through their pulsings.
hopefully, that health is all concerned.
All they want is to eat and not their lives.
During this Democratic Congresswoman, Madeline engaged in a great time in Pennsylvania, also the chair of the bipartisan fentanyl prevention caucus, and somebody with a personal experience with this. So get to the second question. But first, you questioned House and Human Services Secretary like Junior this week of Mr. Trump administration's plan. At least it seemed like there was some plans being funded to make massive cuts to the substance abuse and mental health services administration. Arthur Junior told me no addiction therapy discussion. He just wants to make it more efficient. Tell us about that. Exactly.
If you take a look at the so-called free budgets, there was a program. Hotel, substance misuse, recovery, treatment, not to mention medicine. That's impact those who are seeking treatment. One of the things. So when you go in and you say, limited stamp that is put it in something called that is your mom. When you support it, when you have a 27%, let's figure the numbers. As a result of COVID, it raised back in overdose deaths. 110,000 people in the year died. 300 people were dead, 365 days. It was now 220 people a day. Still horrifying.
Yeah.
Really, but when you have a 27% decrease, and we know some of the reasons for it,
so viewers of the show, no, because I interviewed you and your son. This is a personal story. You co-wrote a book with Harry, your son, about his battle with substance abuse called Under Armies. The son's battle for recovery, a mother's battle for her son. Honestly, no matter what you accomplish legislatively, this is an incredible news that you're doing here with your son. I just think it's true. You also talk about being lucky to have you could help it. Talk about that.
I've met recent parents, mothers who have lost their sons and their kids were hoping to get the treatment and they're on phone call after phone call for help. We need to reinsurance, but how to cover the beginnings of the recovery plan. It's really not. With addiction, remember it was a disease.
Yeah.
This is some failing in his house.
This was completely destroyed. I was asleep in this bed. And it fell.
I would be the voice of the coverage and the others that to the coverage.
He's already see overdose.
Every
So,
for a couple of reasons. You never know who you might run into, who's struggling, who might have the poison of suspension.
destruction.
No, in fact, your former colleague, Ted Lewis, Democratic congressman in Florida, his nephew was taking like an herbal supplement that had central
So many substances, cocaine. For a couple, to help if we were ever called upon, much more, reduce the stigma, reduce the shame, and say, we can provide, we can provide now, to the health industry.
Reacting to your points, I think we talked about this point, and it's also for the time we have.
Hope we understand. Is that right? It's just right. Keep up the great work. It's really, really important, and let's hope that these numbers keep going along. So, Congressman, thank you much. Appreciate it.
As the United States and the Arab leaders, in Gaza for the past 2 days. Footage in the aftermath of the strike on Deir al-Balah. The second included Gaza into complex mosque and a separate medical clinic. Since Israel resumed strikes on the 18th of March, taking the wars over 2010. Israel says its aid stoppage and military pressure are meant to force Hamas to free the remaining hostages seized during the October 2023 attack that triggered the war. But the group insisted that the restoration of humanitarian assistance in the war-ravaged territory was the minimum requirement for talks. It also warned that Gaza was not for sale. Hours after US President Donald Trump again floated the idea of taking it into a freedom zone. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio acknowledged the criticism of the plan and said Washington was open to an alternative if someone had a better plan.
There's a plan out there that's been offered that's been criticized by some. I'll see.
Secretary of State also said that he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and conveyed that Washington is troubled by the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Furthermore, the Israeli military said it intercepted a missile fired from Yemen following air raid sirens sounded in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The attack was claimed by Yemen's Houthi rebels. The Iran-backed group said that they targeted Tel Aviv's international airport with the help of a hypersonic ballistic missile.
This is forces during a specific military operation targeting Lod Israel named Ben Gurion Airport and the occupied area of Jaffa using a hypersonic ballistic missile. The missile has successfully achieved its objective, causing millions of occupying Zionists to flee to shelters and halting airport operations for nearly an hour.
The main thing who very comfortable, very completely inspired. There really is three things that kind of feel like but just hours later, another senior leader is proposing Israel does it well to take a basic hostages to take a UN award over the main critical risk mid Israel Israel is kissing that, but it's new offensive videos. Oh yeah, Ukraine. Palestinian health officials say more than 100 people worked in it overnight on Sunday amid an extensive round of testing. In Hong Kong, local authorities say an Etihad airstrike hit the attention to the state.
Nothing is left for us. May God have mercy on us. We are fed up. We need a people. Shame on you. We are fed up. We cannot live any longer. My heart can't handle anymore.
State also said that Washington is troubled by the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The investigation said he won't take part in this humanitarian operation in Gaza because it's not impartial and independent, while Israel best to facilitate the effort without being deliverance.
Characterizations and I think that we participate in aid operations if they are in accordance with the basic principles. As we've experiencing that does not basic laws, partiality, neutrality
requires really different adaptation. We're gonna fine tune and find a way to give it best advantage and have a thing about this fighting it.
She said that
Wants to get better, that's why it's hard to find.
internationally.
My mind, how they solutions.
She's carried out a specific military operation targeting Israel and the occupied area
Now,
using hypersonic means to successfully achieve its objectives. Occupying Zionists to flee to shelters, halting airport operations for nearly an hour.
more talk.
Into people.
No,
And who seen shows, shelters, and rescue for survivors. Outside of hospital economies, families were seen mourning over shrouded bodies.
here in what summer. Killed as well as their parents. Died too, and lost her.
In the north, 17 looking each type of Jabalia, 4 more deaths reported as Zawadia and Khan Yunis. Civil defense officials called it series of violent strikes, saying half the dead for children. The Israeli military has not commented on the statement. Final facilitated the invasion of Sudan was to shut down the heavy fighting and an Israeli siege cut off access to patient staff and supplies. Amid the escalation, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's opposition statement saying Israel still be fighting. Israel also put out that a ceasefire agreement will have to of all hostages, the exile Hamas terrorists, and disarmament of the Gaza Strip. Negotiations are ongoing as of now, but as diplomacy unfolds, the reality on the ground is dire. Strikes continuing and humanitarian conditions collapsing by the day.
State cancer, according to a statement, was released by his office this afternoon. Because of these months, and then seeing
Operation Smart Operation Gideon's Chariots. The Israeli Defense Force also announced that these ground operations are part of the opening phase of the major offensive, and this, as Palestinian officials reported, more than 100 people were killed in the past 24 hours in Israeli strikes. Israel's military has said that the expansion of its campaign is aimed at achieving of its war objectives, including releasing hostages and the defeat of Hamas.
Form of the disease. The cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective immunity. They go on to say that the former president
Military has said that both the standing search began at the ground operation in southern Gaza Strip.
the small nozzle something the spokesperson has told me last week. Determined and written that he was fit for duty and fully execute all of his responsibilities without any exemption or accommodation. The point right now, at a time in Wilmington, Delaware, if they wouldn't fight for that going forward,
With the directives of the political echelon, we are embarking on an operation in order to realize all the goals of the war in Gaza, the return of the hostages, and the overthrow of the Hamas regime. It is important to emphasize that we know how to adapt to any development. According to the Times of Israel, the name Operation Gideon's Chariots is a reference to the biblical warrior figure Gideon as the legendary Gideon, who was a prophet and military leader who led an army of Jewish tribes to victory over Midianites. As the Israeli army begins its ground operations, it continues to bomb Gaza with aerial strikes. Hospitals and medics in the Gaza Strip say Israeli strikes across the Palestinian enclave have killed at least 103 people.
His daughter. Sounds very violent. Someone that from
Afghanistan parents not the time to and yes,
so this is a very difficult period for President Biden and his family between the around the university of which I think Biden himself will be fighting this disease as well.
So this heavy fire that the Israeli sea
Construction of human
security cabinet meeting is something involving the visit to the Prime Minister who said it is being done. The recommendation of the IDF and
I've heard from many this afternoon who are quite by the fair people are very quick to point out that Biden has always been a fighter. And they feel this is something to resilience for a community to stop and prayers. This device.
So allow so that I'm results in nothing to pass every constituent loud the map.
Of course, the social media parent highlighting that such a catastrophic situation and definitely
Protesting in front of Egypt's Rafah border crossing with Gaza for the access and end to the war.
Testified that what is being said in Europe is not true. This is a closed border. It is a border from where aid has not passed in months. It is a border where we hear the bombs right now. The explosions of the bombs just 12 kilometers away from us. Plus that Israel lost a considerable force of the States ceasefire. This is the latest one. CNN reported, citing one Hamas official as agreed to release 9 centimeter ceasefire in Gaza. The Israeli military claimed. Outskirts alongside the peace of Palestinian security Hamas denied this. Senior official of Sami Abu reiterated the stance that it is prepared to release forces in one phase itself, provided Israel agrees to end the war with the
It's very, reminds us of the situation of the Muslim and the party, and here and destruction to the process by the far right. But even though in this particular case, the far right has been in this particular election, the parliamentary consideration moving forward, to get it right, going into what was effectively the third snap meeting in recent months in Portugal. So a lot of those things are moving forward, particularly when it comes to the configuration of the coalition. I mean, it was like this together.
That's the worst that is a war. They were very influential on our people for many years. About the future. And what people want from our community. And on Sunday, announced that these ground operations are part of the opening phase of the new region offensive, and this, as Palestinian officials reported on the call, for the past 24 hours, either Israel strikes. Israel's military has said that the expansion of its campaign is aimed at achieving all of its war objectives, including releasing hostages and the defeat of Hamas. The military has said that IDF troops in the Southern Command, both the standing army, began the broad operation about the whole in Southern Gaza.
On the one hand, supporting the European Union, and on the other, it will be another disaster. And let's not forget the situation.
Currently being deployed
beneficiary of EU funding. So there are lots of ironies here, of course, uncertainty moving forward. I'm glad that we can, this is all happening. We're
in accordance with the directives of the
Ultimately,
political
I would
law.
like to commend the film joined by the
In order to
and my
realize
friend,
the goals of the
a
Gaza,
member of the White House
the
and
return of the
President
hostages,
Biden's
and the results of the Hamas regime.
administration. That's
It is important to emphasize that we
the
know how to
Walmart
adapt to
CFO.
any development.
The massive period at which these prices are coming to us is somewhat unprecedented in history, and Americans. Consumers will be pouring earnings reports from other major U.S. companies like TCA and Depot as well. We know that trade deal wasn't made clear, but
Hospitals and clinics in the Gaza Strip say Israeli strikes Palestinian enclave in at least 120.
numbers going in, from consumer sentiment, the CPI, the PPI is with it.
In a nutshell. There is no left. Killed as well as their parents. My mother died too, and my niece lost her.
This morning, surprised to find out that my sister
If we look around.
Gaza also announced that all public hospitals in northern Gaza are now out of service. The Sinai facility, the International Hospital, was forced to shut down after a heavy fire and an Israeli siege cut off access to patients, staff, and supplies. Security cabinet meeting which took place on Sunday. Following the decision, the Prime Minister's office said it is being done at the recommendation of the IDF and for what it dubbed as an operational need to enable the expansion of fighting to defeat Hamas. It said that Israel will allow the entry of basic monthly food for the population in order to prevent the development of a hunger crisis. It added namely to the continuing operation to defeat Hamas. The move comes amid increasing
But
international
everything else
pressure.
still is under the same United States. I'm giving 50 something trying to make a difference, but you're not gonna be able to. You're gonna send a letter. And then basically what that's saying to the business in the United States. That sounds like they're
Catastrophic
on the
humanitarian
table right
situation
now. So what
definitely
Tossed in front of Egypt's Rafah crossing with Gaza, calling for immediate access and an end to the war.
Figure
The Rafah border to testify that what is being said in Europe is not true. This is a closed border. It is a border from where aid has not passed in months. It is a border where we hear the bombs right now. The explosions of the bombs just 12 kilometers away from us. Was that Israel and Hamas are considering posts for hostage ceasefire. CNN reported, citing an unpaid expression that the group has agreed to release 9 hostages amid the ceasefire in Gaza with Israeli alongside the release of 300 Palestinian civilians. Behind this, a senior official, Sami reiterating the stance that it is prepared to release all hostages in one phase itself, provided Israel agrees to end the war.
And Netanyahu also said if he's negotiating a team in President exhausted every negotiation to free the hostages, including a framework that would consider an end. As indicates a shift in position for Netanyahu but has until now insisted that the team would only negotiate on the basis of US special liberty clause. And these proposals for a short-term ceasefire and limited hostage state.
But a $250 billion Ecclesia,
The activists gathered in Israeli southern city of Sderot. Marched towards the Gaza wall, calling an end to the war. Stop the police.